Wasabi guys, welcome back to another underrated commander cards video. As always, if you appreciate these or any videos I create, please subscribe to the channel. It really does help me out. We are cruising along here well past 36,000. Now the whole purpose behind the underrated cards videos, it's to cover cards that I believe are undervalued or underplayed. These are not by any means commander staples. I tend to recommend cards that people don't usually play to try to get them to experiment with new things. So first up, we have a card from Modern Horizons 2, Serra's Emissary. I think we're getting to the point mana-wise where if you look at a creature like this, if it's 7 mana in white, you're going to want it to have some massive impact. And I think you do get it here, although I believe the reason why it's underplayed is because it's just not doing really as much as Avacyn Angel of Hope. I think as far as protection goes for your creatures, that's the standard for angels. That being said, Serra's Emissary is considerably cheaper and has other uses outside of just protecting your creatures from instants or sorceries. You could straight up just choose creature types so they would have protection being able to swing in uncontested. I think the fact that you can do that, and you're probably going to do that more than the other options, is why I believe Serra's Emissary should see more play. It's not something you absolutely needed in angel decks where there's a lot of evasion already with flying, but also understand that flying is something that everyone plays. So even though you're likely to have a deck with all flyers, making all of your angels essentially unblockable because they have protection from creatures should make it a lot easier for you to win. Next up, we have Errant Street Artist. This is a pretty cool commander option from New Capenna that I think is flying under the radar. Only being 1 mana means that I think you could fit her into a lot of other strategies pretty easily, but that ability for 2 mana to tap it to copy a target spell you control that wasn't cast is incredibly unique. I don't think we've really had anything like this. To have this on flash as well means it could be a response. When I was going to do my list for the top 10 best cards of Streets of New Capenna, I was honestly surprised to see that Errant Street Artist was one of the least built around commander options. We have a ton of copy spells in blue. We have a ton of spells that all they do is copy and then choose new targets. So if that's something you're looking to build around in a commander deck, why not give her a try? Next, we have Morbid Opportunist from Midnight Hunt. This is one of many cards from Midnight Hunt we're going to be talking about in this video because it's just such an underrated set, and especially when it comes to black spells, you get a ton of value. Morbid Opportunist is a once-a-turn trigger, which is the worst thing about it, but it's really the only creature like this for 3 mana that lets you draw cards whenever any creature dies. So it could be a token creature, it could be your opponent's creatures. I think people were so distracted by that second sentence that they completely ignored that the first one was pretty much better than the alternatives like Grim Haruspex. Suffice to say, if your deck plays Grim Haruspex, you might also want to consider Morbid Opportunist. Next, we have another black card from Midnight Hunt, Mask of Grizzlebrand. This is not a Skull Clamp. It does not belong in nearly as many decks as Skull Clamp, I know, but it does more. It's a bigger play than Skull Clamp. If you're looking for flying and lifelink, well, who isn't? You can give that to a creature in black. Whenever the equipped creature dies, you may pay X life, where X is its power. If you do, you draw cards. So that's the Grizzlebrand part, paying life to draw that many cards. What I like is that you have a way to enable that by giving the creature lifelink. So if you're playing an aristocrat deck where you sacrifice creatures often, you can go to combat first, attack, gain some life, and then you can sacrifice that creature, pay a bunch of life, draw a bunch of cards. What I like about this is that you're not just playing it for the card draw. You could just be playing it because you like those 2 keywords, which they're pretty decent. So it's not like a Skull Clamp where its only purpose is to really just draw you cards. Skull Clamp isn't that great if you're just looking for equipments. Mask of Grizzlebrand is more like those cards that you would throw into an equipment deck because it's actually going to improve your experience in combat. Next up, we have Dreadhound, which is also again a black card from Midnight Hunt. I've talked about this one before, as well as Morbid Opportunist. Dreadhound I compared to Sir Conrad in that it's going to be another aristocrat trigger card. There's no shortage of these in black now, but this is more focused on mill. And not only that, but you get a good trigger here where you can mill yourself 3 cards. What I think is so underrated about this card is that for the same reason why Sir Conrad is desirable in a lot of strategies where you also mill, here you get triggers for milling. So it's more than just simply needing creatures to sacrifice to get a death trigger. You have other ways of punishing them. You could play a massive mill spell, and each opponent is going to lose 1 life for each creature that is put into a graveyard. It's super abusable. The only bad thing is, of course, the 6 mana cost. People get funny about that. They don't like playing a higher mana curve, which it's ridiculous because it's not that expensive in Commander. Not everybody's playing in playgroups where you win in the first 3 turns. Next up, we have Gorogoro, Disciple of Ryusei from Kamigawa Neon Dynasty. This is one of my favorite cards in the entire set, and I've talked about it with Maricel the Pretender. Very abusable with that commander, but even as a commander option itself, you have an ability that's very cheap. For 1 red mana, you can give all of your creatures haste until end of turn. This is pretty close to being Fervor on a creature that will also give you more benefits. It's not just like you're playing Urabrask. You actually have a second ability where you can create a 5/5 red dragon spirit creature token with flying if you attacked with a modified creature. So, just play equipments or play auras, whatever you want to do in order to get the creatures to be modified. You could even put +1/+1 counters on them, and you have a pretty easy way of getting awesome creature tokens. And if you have the mana to do so, you can even activate this multiple times. So get yourself some more dragons. Next up, we have Balor from Battle for Baldur's Gate. It's a lot of bees there. This one might be flying under the radar initially, but I think once people start playing with it, they're going to realize how awesome it is. When Balor attacks or dies, you get to choose 1 or more of these 3 modes. The first one is great if you have a way of punishing your opponents for discard. Target opponent draws 3 cards, then discards 3 cards at random. Second mode says target opponent sacrifices a non-token artifact. And the third one says Balor deals damage to target opponent equal to the number of cards in their hand. I like this for several reasons. First of all, it's a mono red demon, and there's a ton of demon support. We have more demon tribal support in recent years. It's a fairly costed creature for what it does, a 5/5 flyer for 5, and you also get this on a death trigger, which means that you can play it in more of a sacrifice aristocrat strategy. All of those modes are relevant. You could even play this in something like Nekasar and really take advantage of the first and third modes. And right out of the gate for Baldur's Gate, no pun intended, Balor is reasonably priced. So it's not going to be super expensive. It's not one of those mythics where everyone's got to get it. I would say this is 100% a card for the average casual commander player. Next up, we have Jasminas Respite, also from Battle for Baldur's Gate. This 5-mana instant lets you search your library for up to X basic land cards, where X is the number of creatures attacking you. Put those cards onto the battlefield tapped. You prevent all combat damage that would be dealt this turn. So it's a fog that also lets you get more lands. We've had a spider fog in the past, we've had buyback fogs, and they all seem to be the most fun plays in Commander for some reason. Denying someone the killing blow, you don't even necessarily have to do it to save yourself from lethal damage. Usually the player on top is going to be attacking multiple opponents, so save it up for when they're looking to deal the killing blow. Usually with fogs, it's just you play the fog, you prevent combat damage, and nothing really changes. With this, you could be giving yourself more mana that could help you play other spells and get you out of a jam. Next, we have Siphon Insight from Midnight Hunt, another black spell in Midnight Hunt that I think is incredibly underrated. And I think that's solely because cards like these, if it's not red and black, it's probably not going to see play in those strategies like with Prosper Tomebound, because this is exactly the type of card that you would want to play with that commander. We have some blue-black options that will also take advantage of this, but I would still say, considering that it's a 2-mana instant with a flashback cost of 3, what it does is still incredible. You look at the top 2 cards of an opponent's library, you exile one of them face down, and you get to play that card for as long as it remains exiled. I would say you could fit it into a bunch of Spellslinger decks, and if you're able to easily manipulate the top deck of an opponent's library, something like this is going to be even easier to play with. It's one of the more annoying things to do when you steal your opponent's cards, but I also believe it's right at that threshold where it's not quite as bad as stealing an opponent's turn, so I think most people are going to be okay with it. It's not going to ruin anyone's day. And the last card to talk about today is the Council of 4 from Battle for Baldur's Gate. As a commander option, I have to admit this is a little lackluster. You are going to want to play more of a control theme, focusing on getting as much card draw as possible, controlling the board, making sure that you have more creatures than your opponents, being able to even them out. It gives you what you see a lot of in white, which is an equalizer. If your opponents are playing too many spells or getting aggressive, you get some value out of that. Whenever a player draws their second card during their turn, you get to draw a card, and whenever a player casts their second spell during their turn, you will get to create a 2/2 White Knight creature token. What's really interesting about this as well is that it's a 0/8 creature, so for all those strategies where you're looking for a higher toughness to power ratio, this would fit right in, and you're also getting some pretty solid triggered abilities. So anyway, let me know what you think about these 10 underrated commander cards. Let me know if there are any others that you believe are underrated in recent years. Commander Void here signing off. Remember to subscribe. I will see you all next time.